So one last thing about the setup of the base, guys, is adjusting the truss rod. Now the truss rod is a metal rod that runs through the length of the neck, and when you turn it, it tightens or loosens and changes the bow of the neck, so how much the neck curves away from the body, obviously relative to the tension of the strings against pulling against the neck or the headstock. Now, I find that most of the time I don't need to adjust it, and as far as I can tell today, I don't need to make any adjustments to this. This particular model fender was a late 90s one, and I believe around that sort of time they started putting reinforcement graphite bars into the neck to sort of stabilize this and make sure that it doesn't need changing too much. Obviously, you can set it up as per your preference, but because we're talking something that's predominantly wood and the rest that isn't wood is mostly metal, it does change according to the climate you're in, the humidity, the temperature. So going through the different seasons of the year, it is worth checking this out and making sure that everything's in place. Now, the truss rod's really easy to adjust, but you can get it very wrong. So if you're really not sure what you're doing, you want to make sure that you get a professional to do this. But it is really easy, and if you have confidence, then you can do it quite easily. Now, the base, if you bought it new, should come with the appropriate tool to make the adjustments with. In this case, this fender came with this Fender branded hex key, but a decent proper Allen key will do the job, providing it is the right size. Again, make sure that you use the right size tool for whichever adjustment you're making. In this case, the adjustment for the truss rod is at the body end. It's just at the end of the neck here. Now, this is a replacement pick guard. I used to have a white one on, and it had a little cutaway here where you could get to the truss rod end. Now, this one doesn't have that, so I do actually have to take the pick guard off to make an adjustment. So I'm glad it doesn't need a regular adjustment on it. But sometimes the truss rod is at the neck end, the headstock end, and you'll see that quite commonly on guitars. Basses tend to seem to have them at this end, but there's some of each. Now, I tend to prefer a fairly flat neck. Some people prefer them bowed out a little more, so you have a higher action. I quite like a low action, so I have a fairly flat neck and adjust the height according to the bridge. But what you want to do is get a ruler or a flat piece of card or something, and just sort of lie that along the neck when the strings are at tension and see what the actual height of that is. You want to sort of measure at least the majority of the neck and see how high, if it's grounded here and here, how high the card is off the neck here, and that'll be the relief of the neck. Now, as long as you're comfortable playing it, it doesn't really need adjusting. But if it starts getting different every time you check it, then you want to make sure that you tighten up the truss rod. It's easily done. You take your tool, pop it into the point where you adjust the truss rod. Now, generally, you turn it clockwise to tighten the truss rod. And that'll be to tighten it and flatten the neck. So it's tightening it against the tension of the strings. Left or anti-clockwise to loosen it so the strings tension pulls the neck out more. Do it very, very slowly. A quarter turn at a time, if that. Just tiny little movements. Check it, tune up. Make sure everything's as it should be, and then check how it's all working together. I wouldn't change it dramatically in one hit because you may damage your neck, but just make sure it's comfortable for where you are. So currently this one doesn't need anything doing, so I'm not going to adjust it. Don't adjust it just because. And you're good to go.